Matt Rodder.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and it is an honour to follow the Honourable Lady, and I would like to echo her tribute to those four colleagues of hers, and indeed pay my own tribute to Armed Forces personnel later in my remarks. Mr. Speaker, I appreciate time is very brief, so I just want to address the key points and raise three issues. First of all, I would like to thank colleagues from across the House for the generous and sensible way that we have been debating these important matters with one another, and I would like to associate myself with the remarks by the Leader of the Opposition, the former Prime Minister, and also for the chairs of the two select committees who spoke earlier, and indeed colleagues who served from across the House in Afghanistan. The 3 points that I would wish to make are, first of all, to pay tribute to the forces, secondly, to highlight some outstanding and key humanitarian issues, as other colleagues have done, but also to briefly and very briefly touch on some of the possible lessons, although we are in the very early stages of assessing those. In terms of paying tribute to those who served, I wanted to make very clear that from my perspective, and I believe this is felt across the House and across the country, those who gave their lives and paid the ultimate price didn't give their lives in vain. We've had 20 years in which terrorism in Afghanistan has been kept under control. The threat of attacks to the west, spectacular attacks like the Twin Towers attack, has been removed from that country. We now face a new situation which we must address. I want to comment on that later. But very briefly.
He's talking about the threat of terrorism now that the Taliban are back in power. Does he also share my concern about the fact that the Taliban is the world's biggest drug cartel, producing 85% of the world's global heroin? And this is something that will have an impact on our communities as production is set to soar under the Taliban.
I would like to thank her for that point, and I agree with her concern and share it deeply with her. In terms of the benefits of the 20 years of intervention, I think it's also very important, this has been addressed across the House, to recognise the significant benefits within Afghanistan of our commitment to that country, and to consider and reflect on that and the achievements, the huge achievements which were made in that time, and we should not lose sight of that. I also want to point out that it is vitally important that we now support our veterans. As my honourable friend from Gower and many other speakers have said, it is crucial that we support our veterans as they go through this next very difficult phase. Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I beg your pardon, I'm grateful for the time, and I will quickly address the other points. Turning to the humanitarian crisis, we've all been shocked, deeply shocked by the scenes from the airport. I'm pleased that the government is making further commitments today. I would like to see further detail, and I hope there will be no backsliding. It is really important that we live up to our international obligations here, and as many colleagues have said, we need to find ways of smoothing out and removing unnecessary bureaucracy so that we can live up to our obligations to people who serve this country, and also key members of civil society who are highly likely targets of the Taliban regime. Just finally, moving to the lessons very, very briefly, it is far too early to address in any detail whatsoever, but I would like to raise some poignant questions which I hope that we can all reflect on. The strategy quite clearly needs to be re-examined, as many other people have mentioned. That's an international matter. It's also a matter for the British government as the key ally of the US. But we do also need to consider the immediate period running up to this crisis and reflect on the management of key government departments and indeed the role of the Prime Minister at that time. Thank you very much, Mr. Deputy Speaker.